So, Sex Education Season 4 is here. I'm not the only person who's been waiting for this for absolute ages, and I'm so excited to actually be talking about this. So here's my review on Sex Education Season 4, and this will contain some spoilers. First of all, I'd like to start off by saying that Season 1 and Season 2 are by far my favourite seasons of Sex Education. Season 3 wasn't as good as Season 1 or Season 2, but it did have its moments. Season 4, as I'm about to do a review, I will be talking about it, and I'll let you know at the end. So first of all, I'd like to start out with all the characters that didn't make it, sadly, to Season 4. Now, some of these characters did make it to Season 1 and 2, or some made it between 1 and 3, or some were just introduced in 3. Now, I do think this was a back step by the creators, because I generally think that a lot of these storylines and plots that some of these characters did have actually could have progressed to Season 4 and actually been alright. I don't think it would have been oversaturated, because they just cut out way too many cast members and kind of ruined the plot a little bit by introducing new characters, and we have to resonate and relate to them, whereas these other ones were kind of established and we could have carried on with them. But anyway, here are some of the characters that you may have missed, and hopefully you may remember some of them. So here are some of the characters that didn't make it to Season 4. Now, as I said before, I think personally the whole Season 4 would have been better if some of these characters were included. Doesn't necessarily mean all the characters had to be included, but some of them would have been far better. Now, I'm not going to go through each one of these characters. That could be here all day, but Jacob, for example, you can perfectly understand why that character was cut off. It was quite abrupt at the end. Finding out he was the father was quite shocking. Finding out actually who was the father in the final Season 4 was actually quite surprising. A bit unexpected. Didn't really expect that, if I'm being honest. I think he could have been like a bit of a background character. His daughter would have took like the main screen in the new college, starting a new school, whatever. I think that his daughter dating Lily would have actually been a really good storyline for the new college. It would have actually been a lot better, because Lily's character is quite a big character, and Lily has the whole obsession with aliens and things like that, which was taken down in Season 3 at the very end, pretty much. I kind of feel like if she went to a new college, she would then find herself again and go back to it. Like, you could see so many different possible storylines about Lily that would actually have been really good. Maybe she should start like a space alien sort of after school club. I don't know. It would have been quite interesting to see. Really missed the boat there, in my opinion. Another character in here, which I generally think would have been a great character to add in Season 4, would have been Layla. Layla joined, I think, in Season 3. I wasn't really sure. I haven't actually seen Season 1 and Season 2 for a while, but I did fact check on it. I'm pretty sure it did say Season 3. Obviously, the character is non-binary, so I think that them being non-binary in the new progressive school actually would have been far better, and I generally think Layla's journey would have been far more interesting than Cal's journey, in my opinion. But otherwise from that, half these characters, if they were generally in Season 4, I think it would have been a lot better. So if we talk about the original characters as well, so the original characters in Season 4 that actually are in Season 4, Adam. Now, Adam actually was one of the highlights of the season. He grew quite a lot. Didn't particularly interact with any of the other cast members that much. His whole storyline of getting his first job and learning to drive was actually really good, and I really enjoyed it. Especially his father and son relationship. That was by far one of the highlights of the entire season, and it was really nice to see them sort of patch things up. It is extremely disappointing, the fact that he didn't really interact with any really of the other cast members, and I do think that was a very bad missed opportunity there. It was very awkward between him and Eric, but I generally think that if he was to interact more with the other cast members, that could have created more storylines and actually made the season a lot better. It's also really great that he's got a new love interest and he's moving on in his life. So let's talk a bit about Eric. So Eric being one of the original cast members, I really enjoyed him in Season 1, Season 2. That was sort of peak Eric, and then it sort of dipped a little bit in Season 3 with the whole cheating thing, and I didn't really like his character a little bit after that. He kind of changed. I think in this season they recapture sort of Season 1 and Season 2 Eric again, and it's actually quite enjoyable to see him. I think you can never really truly hate Eric. Eric just has that weird presence that you just can't really hate the guy. I know some people out there still hate him for the whole cheating thing, but I don't think it's particularly that too bad. And the whole church storyline I generally think is by far most interesting out of all the different storylines in the season. Seeing him finally accept himself as he is and trying to move on and just be himself was really good. I really enjoyed it. Which brings me to this powerful scene of him. This is absolutely great acting here. Probably by far the best part of the season for his character. And you see that he accepts himself and he's very open and honest, and he just tells everyone about his sexuality, which he was always afraid of doing, and people accepting him for what and who he is. And seeing the tears, it was just such an emotional scene. Anyone who watched this didn't really feel so proud of him as a character to finally just move on, and it was really powerful and I really enjoyed it. So Amy's character is by far one of the best original characters, and luckily she wasn't cancelled, thank God for that. I always loved her from season 1 all the way up to season 4. She's had a lot of different storylines. She's always been a treat to watch. This season basically is her having a new love interest. I would say more into that, but I don't want to spoil too much in this. I like to keep some spoilers for those who wish to watch it. But she finally comes to terms and processes her trauma through the previous seasons and finally is able to move on. And it's quite a good growth for her as a character. And you can see that her character has actually grown quite a lot over the seasons. And not only that, but you can see that she's actually now got to the point in her life where she can actually finally be happy. I kind of feel like despite all the horrible things that have happened to her, she's took a really long time to recover from that. And even though her friends have been there for her every step of the way, she has kept the memento from that horrible day of the horrible thing that happened. And by burning it, that actually allows her to move on. And it was quite a powerful scene. So here is my season 4 review of Sex Education. Now, I think the major issue really with season 4, in my personal opinion, was the fact that most of the original staff were gone. Now, I don't know if it was a payment issue or what. Now, I can understand the school was closed and it would have made more sense to have like a handful of them go over, but I think still like double of what went over would have made more sense. Like no teachers and no nothing went there. And I kind of feel like this was kind of a bad decision by them. I can't stress this enough. Because there are some characters in the original cast that actually would have worked really well with the new progressive school. And it just seems like a really wasted opportunity by the writers and a bit lazy. For example, Lily would have been one of the perfect characters to move to this school with her girlfriend. Because of how progressive the school was, I think this would have actually been one of the best decisions they could have possibly done. Also, we had the other non-binary character as well, who could have possibly been added in as well, which would have fitted in really well with the school. Whereas Cal's storyline, while being quite good, I have seen online quite a bit of a backlash for that character, but I generally think that the other non-binary character would have probably had a far better storyline than Cal's, in my personal opinion. One of the things I think that did also let this season down a lot was the new characters. Now, I think there was way too many of them, and there was too many storylines going on, and I think this kind of really affected the older characters. Now, I think one of the things that could have worked a lot better is some of the older characters that weren't even in this season, like I said before, which would have had more in common with some of the newer characters, were actually not even in the show, which is a shame really, because these new characters and old characters, had they met, would have actually probably made the season far better. But like I said before, I generally think that if it was split into 2 seasons, it would have been far superior, but sadly that was not the case. But I also feel like Ruby's character in general would have been far better as well, because if Ruby had her old clique with her buddies, they would have actually been quite a good subplot as well, like the old popular kids versus the new popular kids, if you know what I mean. Sort of like a Mean Girls type of situation, you know. It would have been actually quite entertaining to sit there and watch these two cliques battle it out. Now, Otis kind of took a bit of a back seat really in this season, and I do think that his character was more undeveloped, if anything, because I don't think really he progressed much at all, if anything. Now, the main storyline with him is between him and O being another sex therapist on campus, and him basically battling out between him and her. They basically got butt heads, and they decide that they should do like an election to see who win, and it basically becomes your typical popularity contest between two people. The one thing I don't really understand, and a lot of people who are watching this review probably may agree with me, is the fact that when they are having a debate, she's willing to completely trash him just so that she can win and she can be the only sex therapist on campus. And when Otis outs her as being someone who ghosts people in relationship and she shouldn't necessarily be giving advice, she then comes out as asexual, which was quite funny really, these little battles in between the election, because it's quite funny how like whenever one of them would counter, they would all then automatically like turn on the person. It's quite funny. So as soon as he outed her as asexual, they all sort of turned on Otis being some sort of like massive arsehole. But the thing is, he didn't really know at this time about this. So I do think really in this case, like he should have always been given the benefit of the doubt. People were very quick to judge, and I think that's one of the main issues really Sex Education did sort of gloss over, which is quite funny really, because people shouldn't really judge people straight away based on certain things. But one of the things I do find kind of strange about this whole situation was the fact that O being asexual and the school being very progressive, that O being asexual wouldn't be remotely a big deal. I think most people would have actually been perfectly okay with that. I don't think really there'd been necessarily any blowback. This school was like one of these dream schools that basically everyone seems to more or less get along, because there wasn't even that much bitchiness really overall. Like if you ever watch things like Mean Girls, where like the like how bitchy high school is, like this school is basically everybody gets along and everyone accepts everyone for what and who they are, which I think is just kind of a strange storyline, given that, you know, O being asexual would have really not been a big deal. I can understand why she might not want to necessarily tell people, but to me it just seemed like a very odd situation. So with Otis in season 4, though, he has got himself sort of nearly stuck in another triangle again, which I kind of feel like we as viewers have sort of gave up a bit on, because I kind of feel like he's moved away from Ruby and now he's with Maeve. But it kind of sort of a couple elements in the season where it looks like he could be leaning a different way. They clearly do have chemistry, and I think she obviously still loves him a lot, and I think he still loves her a little bit, but he doesn't like to show it. I generally think that him and Maeve never particularly made a good couple. They just never really had the chemistry. I kind of feel like these two characters, while had some things in common, they just should never really ended up together. And I kind of think that the final really should have ended up with him breaking off with Maeve. There's a long list of reasons what he could have come up with. I think him as a character taking time away from women and just letting himself grow would have actually been a far better ending than her basically dumping him, which was quite a sad scene. But one of the other endings could have been him and Ruby getting back together, which I think would have been far better, because they just had better chemistry, and it was actually probably one of the best seasons with them two getting together. I think really with him, he never really opened up enough with Ruby, which I think really hindered their relationship. Because I think if he opened himself up more to Ruby, it could have potentially made their relationship progress a lot more. But he held back too much. That's kind of why they, like, you know, didn't go as far as what they could have done. But it's a real shame, really. So I think really, you know, if he ended up with Ruby, that would have been a good ending, or him breaking up with Maeve, that would have been quite good, because I think a lot of people wouldn't have expected him to break things off with Maeve as well. So it would have been kind of a twist. Her breaking up with him, just to me, just didn't seem like a good storyline, in my opinion. But overall, I would say that the season was pretty disappointing. I think season 1, season 2 just had like the right type of magic to make it a good show. Season 3 just dipped too much a bit, and then season 4, this was a bit of a car crash compared to the other seasons. I think really getting rid of the main players in the show and some of the sub characters, introducing the annoying new characters, pretty much ruined the season, and the ending wasn't particularly that good. If they did another season, it would have probably worked out quite well, but sadly they're not. But perhaps maybe they'll do a spin-off and do a movie in a couple of years' time. What are your thoughts? Put in the comments section. Do you think it was a good season, a bad season? What could they have done to make it better? Let me know.